In the heart of Africa, amidst towering mountains and vast valleys, lived a boy named Kato, born into a legacy of kings. Though he spent his childhood running through fields and playing with friends, he was destined for greatness. Kato would one day be known as Menelik II, the emperor who would unite Ethiopia and stand against powerful European forces. His journey to the throne, however, was not easy. Before Kato could fulfill his destiny, he would face trials that tested his courage, wisdom, and heart. His path would take him through hardship and sacrifice, but he would rise to become a leader who inspired his people and changed the course of Ethiopian history. This is the story of Kato, the boy from Shewa, who would become a legend, a symbol of unity and strength for his nation.
One day, all this land will be united. I can feel it in my heart.
Kato, what are you doing up here, dreaming about being a king again?
I'm not just dreaming, Tay. I will be king of all Ethiopia. I know it.
You, king? That's a big dream. How can a boy from Shewa unite all of Ethiopia? There are so many kingdoms, and the people are different everywhere.
By being strong, brave, and wise, and by listening to my people, you'll see.
That evening, under a clear sky filled with stars, Kato and his father, King Haile Melekot, sat by a crackling fire. The night air was cool, and the quiet around them felt almost sacred. The firelight flickered across their faces, casting shadows that deepened the lines of the king's aging features. Once a proud and strong ruler, Haile Melekot now looked worn from the weight of leadership, though his eyes still held a fierce pride for his son. Kato, sitting beside him, gazed into the flames, feeling the warmth, but also sensing the importance of the moment. The silence between them was thick with unspoken words, as if both knew that a pivotal conversation was coming. The stillness of the night and the soft crackling of the fire added to the feeling that something significant was about to be revealed.
Kato, you are young now, but one day this kingdom will be yours.
To lead the people and protect them, right?
Yes, but being a king means making hard choices and uniting people, even when they don't agree. It's a heavy burden.
Kato listened intently, realizing that being a king meant more than leading armies into battle. His father's words weighed heavily on him, revealing the true responsibilities of leadership. Kato had always imagined kingship as a symbol of strength and bravery, but now he understood that it required wisdom, compassion, and the ability to unite a divided people. As the firelight flickered across his face, Kato felt the growing weight of his future. He realized that ruling was about making difficult decisions that would affect not just himself, but the entire kingdom. For the first time, Kato truly grasped the immense pressure of what it meant to lead, and he sensed that his journey towards becoming a wise and just ruler had only just begun.
I will be ready, father.
Remember, a king's true strength is his wisdom, not just his sword.
As the fire crackled, Kato felt the weight of his father's advice settle within him. The flickering flame seemed to mirror the significance of the moment. Though he didn't yet fully grasp the depth of his father's words, he understood their importance. The night sky, filled with stars, seemed to bear witness to this critical turning point in his life. Kato's resolve grew stronger with each passing moment. While he couldn't foresee the challenges or decisions he would face as a leader, he was determined to live up to his father's expectations. This was just the beginning of his journey, and Kato knew he was ready to embrace it, no matter the path ahead.
Kato, you must leave. It's not safe. The palace has been attacked. Rival forces from the north have betrayed us. They've come to take the throne. We must go, my prince. Go with them, Kato. Protect yourself. You must live to lead our people.
The night was black, with only the faintest sliver of moonlight piercing through the canopy of trees. Kato, the guard, and a small group of loyal soldiers raced through the dense forest on horseback, their breath coming in quick gasps as they urged their horses onward. The trees loomed tall and shadowy around them, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The pounding of the horses' hooves echoed through the still night, the sound bouncing off the thick trunks as they pushed deeper into the wilderness. Behind them, the enemy's shouts grew louder, a haunting reminder of the danger that was fast approaching. Kato could hear the distant clatter of armor and the menacing barks of orders from the rival forces, drawing closer with every moment. Branches whipped past his face, stinging his skin, but he didn't flinch. His heart raced, not just from the exertion of the ride, but from the realization that everything he knew, his home, his family, his kingdom, was slipping away.
But my father, what about the king?
The words escaped Kato's mouth, lost in the wind as the dense forest closed in around them. Though the palace was far behind, hidden by darkness and trees, Kato's heart ached with the knowledge that his father, too ill to flee, had been left behind. His grip tightened around the reins, his mind flooded with painful images of the palace engulfed in flames and the sounds of battle echoing through the night. He could almost see his father standing tall and defiant, knowing his fate was sealed. Despite the distance, the weight of his father's sacrifice pressed heavily on Kato, filling him with both grief and a growing sense of responsibility for the kingdom he would one day return to reclaim. The god's words pierced Kato, filling him with guilt and sorrow. He had always believed his father would guide him through the trials of kingship. Now, with his father's sacrifice, the weight of the kingdom rested on Kato's young shoulders. Tears mixed with dirt and sweat. But he knew his duty was to survive. With each beat of his horse's hooves, Kato felt the reality settle in. His father had entrusted Shewa's future to him. Though the pain was unbearable, Kato silently vowed to return, reclaim his kingdom, and honor his father's sacrifice. The wind roared, but Kato's resolve only grew stronger. Kato had lost his home, family, and throne, but not his hope. Though the pain of exile weighed on him, a fire still burned within. He carried his father's lessons, the strength to unite, the wisdom to lead with compassion, and the heart to protect his people. Over the years, Kato grew stronger, mastering the art of war and diplomacy, preparing himself for the future. He knew that one day he would return to reclaim what was rightfully his. No longer a boy, Kato would rise as the king who would restore his kingdom and honor his father's legacy.
Remember, young prince, the sharpness of your mind is as important as the sharpness of your blade.
I will learn everything. I will be ready for when the time comes.
As the years passed, Kato grew not only in strength but in wisdom, shaped by the hardships of exile and the lessons of those around him. He trained tirelessly in the art of combat, his sword becoming an extension of his will. Yet it wasn't just physical strength that he honed. He spent hours learning the strategies of war, studying diplomacy, and understanding the delicate balance of leadership. He watched and listened to the stories of other kingdoms, learning from their victories and mistakes. Kato knew that one day he would return to Shewa, not as the boy who fled, but as a king destined to unite all of Ethiopia under one banner, prepared to lead his people into a new era of strength and unity. When that day came, he would be ready to reclaim his throne and fulfill the destiny his father had foreseen. Years had passed, and Kato, once a boy exiled from his father's kingdom, had grown into a formidable man, tempered by the hardships of exile and the lessons of survival. He was ready to take back what was rightfully his. The journey back to Shewa would be fraught with peril. The land was fractured, alliances fragile and brittle, while danger hid behind every shadow, waiting to strike. Yet, Kato carried with him not only the wisdom of his ancestors, but also the strength he had honed through trials and battles. He knew that unity, above all else, was the key to reclaiming his throne and restoring peace to a divided Ethiopia.
I do not come here to demand loyalty. I come to ask for your hearts, your courage, and your strength for Ethiopia. Our enemies grow stronger while we fight among ourselves. They have taken Shewa, But Shewa is not just a city, it is the heart of this land. Together, we can beat them and restore peace.
And what makes you think you can do what others could not? What makes you different, Kato?
I understand something that others before me did not, that our strength lies not in our individual power, but in our unity. Divided, we fall. Together, we rise. I do not ask you to follow me blindly. I ask you to fight for Ethiopia, for a future where our children no longer know the sword.
Unity is the only way.
Then let us make this oath together, for the future of Ethiopia, for Shewa, and for peace.
Night falls over the camp. The stars spread across the sky like scattered diamonds. Kato stands alone at the edge of the plateau, looking out over the vast landscape. The firelight from the camp flickers behind him, casting long shadows. His heart feels heavy with the weight of what lies ahead. His breath fogs in the cold night air, and his thoughts turn to his father and the kingdom he lost.
Father, if you can hear me, I swear to you, I will not fail. Shewa will be ours again.
The men are ready, Kato. But are you?
I have to be. There is no turning back now.
They follow you not because they have to, but because they believe in you. You've already won their hearts.
Thank you, Tesfaye. Tomorrow we march. Tomorrow we begin to take back our home.
As dawn breaks, casting a golden light over Ethiopia's rugged terrain, Kato's united army marches toward Shewa. Once divided by tribal differences, these warriors now move as one, their footsteps echoing the rhythm of their shared purpose. The journey is fraught with danger, but Kato's resolve remains unshaken as he leads them, his eyes fixed on the horizon. His soldiers carry spears and shields, but it is the strength of their unity and hope for a better future that fuels them. Villagers, weary from years of conflict, watch in silent support as the army passes, offering prayers and gestures of solidarity. Kato knows their fight is not just for a throne, but for Ethiopia's soul, a fight for peace and a promise of the united future. As they march, the weight of expectation is heavy, but Kato is driven by the belief that that this journey will reshape Ethiopia.
It's a long way to Shewa. Some say the enemy is stronger than ever. Do you believe we stand a chance?
We do not march because the road is easy. We march because it is necessary. Our enemy fights for power, but we fight for something greater, for our families, our land, and the future of Ethiopia. That gives us a strength they cannot match.
As Kato's army approached Shewa, the fortress loomed in the distance, surrounded by enemies who had claimed it. The setting sun cast an ominous glow over the battlefield, thick with tension as both sides braced for combat. Leading from the front, Kato rode with unshakable resolve, his banner flying high, a symbol of hope for his soldiers. As they neared the enemy, Kato delivered a powerful rallying cry, urging his men to fight not just for Shewa, but for Ethiopia's future. His words ignited the troops, who responded with a unified roar, chanting, "For Ethiopia!" With Kato at the helm, they charged into battle. The clash of steel, dust, and blood engulfed the battlefield as Kato fought alongside his men, his leadership inspiring them to push forward. The tide began to turn to this, and the enemy faltered, sensing defeat as Kato's forces pressed on toward victory.
Today, we fight for more than Shewa. We fight for the future of Ethiopia. This is our land, and we will not let it fall into the hands of those who seek only to tear it apart. Stand with me, fight with me, and we will reclaim what is ours.
Kato charges into battle, his sword gleaming in the fading light. The clash of steel fills the air as the two armies collide. The battle is fierce, dust and blood mingling as the combatants fight with everything they have. Kato leads from the front, cutting through enemy lines, his presence inspiring his men to press forward. The tide of battle begins to turn in their favor as the enemy falters.
Father, we've done it. Shewa is ours again.
You did it, Kato. Shewa is free.
The battle may be won, but the war is far from over. There are still those who seek to divide us, and enemies beyond our borders. But today, we celebrate. Shewa is ours. Ethiopia is one step closer to unity.
With Shewa reclaimed, Kato had taken the first monumental step in fulfilling his destiny. The echoes of victory still lingered, but Kato knew that the road ahead would be fraught with even greater challenges. Enemies from beyond Ethiopia's borders, lurking in the shadows, would not remain idle for long. The task of uniting a fractured and divided land broken by years of conflict was far from complete. Yet Kato was no longer the boy who had fled his home in fear. He had been forged in exile, tested in battle, and crowned by his people's trust. He was now a king prepared to lead his people into a new era of unity, strength, and lasting peace. Kato had restored his father's kingdom, reclaiming Shewa and uniting Ethiopia under his proud banner. But even as peace settled over the land, a new and formidable threat loomed ominously on the horizon. From across the seas, European powers had turned their gaze to Africa, eager to conquer and colonize its vast and resource-rich lands. Among them were the Italians, who arrogantly set their sights on Ethiopia, believing they could crush the proud nation under the weight of their empire. But Kato, now a seasoned and battle-hardened king, knew that to protect Ethiopia's sovereignty and freedom, he would have to confront the full might of an empire head-on. The battle for Ethiopia's survival, for its very soul, was about to begin.
Fire King, the Italians, they've landed on our shores. They come with ships and soldiers planning to claim our land as their own.
Ethiopia is ours, given to us by our ancestors and guarded by the blood of our people. We have fought too long, too hard for this land. The Italians will not take it from us. They will learn what it means to challenge Ethiopia.
As dawn breaks, casting a golden light over the Ethiopian landscape, Cato's army stands in disciplined rows on the palace training grounds. The clashing of swords and the sound of armor echo through the air, a reflection of their readiness for the battle ahead. Cato's army, once a small band of warriors, has now grown into a formidable force, united by a shared purpose. Veterans who fought beside Kato and new recruits eager to prove themselves stand side by side, determined to defend their homeland. Kato walks among his soldiers, observing the resolve in their faces. He knows that this army represents not just a military force, but a spirit of Ethiopia, a nation that has resisted division and now faces a greater threat from the Italian invaders. Addressing his men, Kato's powerful words remind them that they fight not only for Ethiopia, but for their families, their ancestors, and for all of Africa. His speech ignites their hearts, and the soldiers respond with a thunderous battle cry, "For Ethiopia! For Africa!" The soldiers' unity and determination fill Kato with pride, knowing that the Italians will face an indomitable force defending the freedom of their land.
The Italians think they can take our land, as if Ethiopia were a prize for their greed. But they do not know the strength of our hearts, the depth of our courage. We do not fight just for ourselves. We fight for our families, for our ancestors, and for all of Africa. Let them come. Let them see the might of Ethiopia. We will not bend. We will not break.
The cheers echo across the valley, a sound that carries with it the promise of defiance. Kato walks among his men, offering words of encouragement, his heart swelling with pride. He knows that the Italians will not find an easy conquest here. The day of reckoning had finally arrived. Both armies, one brimming with arrogance, the other with unshakable resolve, moved steadily toward the towering mountains of Adwa, where the fate of Ethiopia would be decided. The Italian forces, clad in polished armor and confident in their supposed superiority, marched with an air of certainty. They believed their vast numbers and advanced weaponry would lead to a swift and effortless victory, viewing Ethiopia as a mere obstacle in their imperial ambitions. But Kato, ever the master tactician, had studied the terrain with precision. The mountains, rugged and imposing, would become his greatest ally. He knew their twists and turns, their hidden valleys and steep cliffs. Every inch of Adwa would serve his strategy. As the Italians advanced, Blinded by their overconfidence, they were walking into a trap, a carefully laid plan that would test not only their strength, but their will. For Kato, this was more than just a battle. It was a fight for survival, for Ethiopia's freedom, and for the soul of his people. The mountains would witness a clash that would echo throughout history.
They're getting closer, my king. Shall we engage now?
Hold the line. Let them come closer. We fight on our terms, not theirs. Now show them the might of Ethiopia.
From the hills, the Ethiopian forces surge forward with a thunderous roar. Arrows fly, swords clash, and the battlefield erupts into chaos. Kato rides at the front of his army, leading the charge with unwavering courage. His sword flashes in the sunlight as he cuts through the enemy lines, inspiring his soldiers to fight with relentless determination. The battle is fierce, and blood soaks the earth, but Kato's strategy proves decisive. The Italian forces, caught off guard and overwhelmed, begin to falter. The battle raged fiercely as dust filled the air, obscuring the mountain peaks and creating chaos on the battlefield. Kato fought alongside his men, his presence a symbol of strength and leadership. However, the Italians, well-armed and numerous, began to push back, and for a moment the Ethiopians seemed to falter. Kato, panting from exhaustion, surveyed the battlefield and saw his men struggling. His heart grew heavy with the possibility of defeat. But then, through the swirling dust, Kato spotted a weakness in the Italian lines. A section of their forces had overextended, leaving a gap ripe for exploitation. With a spark of determination, Kato quickly devised a plan. He pointed to the vulnerable spot and commanded his general to order the cavalry to strike. Within moments, the sound of hooves thundered across the battlefield as the cavalry charged into the gap. The Italian forces, caught off guard, were unable to defend their exposed flank. Their formation shattered, and the tide of battle shifted. With newfound strength, Kato's soldiers surged forward, pressing the attack and turning the tide in Ethiopia's favor. Victory now seemed within their grasp. The battle rages on, dust swirling around the combatants, obscuring the view of the mountain peaks. Kato fights alongside his men, his presence like a beacon of strength. But the fighting is brutal. The Italian soldiers, well-armed and numerous, begin to push back, and for a moment, it seems the battle may turn against the Ethiopians. Kato, panting from exertion, surveys the battlefield. He can see his men struggling, and a frown crosses his face. But then he spots something, a weakness in the Italian lines. A section of their forces has overextended, leaving a gap ripe for exploitation.
There. Tell the cavalry to strike now. We'll break them from the inside.
The sun begins to set over the battlefield, casting long shadows over the fallen. The dust settles, revealing Kato's army standing victorious amid the wreckage of the Italian forces. The banners of the invaders lie trampled on the ground, and the remaining Italian soldiers, beaten and demoralized, retreat in disarray. Kato, bloodied but unbowed, stands tall amidst the aftermath, his sword still in hand.
We've done it, my king. The Italians are retreating. The day is ours.
This victory is not just ours. It belongs to all of Africa. Let the world know that Ethiopia will never be conquered. Today, we have shown them the strength of a free people.
He raises his sword one final time, and his soldiers cheer, their voices rising in triumph. The Battle of Adwa would go down in history, not just as a victory for Ethiopia, but as a symbol of defiance against colonial powers across Africa. Against all odds, Kato's forces had triumphed at the Battle of Adwa, a victory that would echo not only across the continent but throughout the world. Ethiopia, the only African nation to successfully resist the tide of European colonization, has stood its ground with unwavering defiance. Kato's leadership, combined with the indomitable courage of his people, had proven that Africa was not a land to be easily subdued, but a land of ancient strength, resilience, and unyielding spirit. This victory was more than just a military triumph. It was a symbol of hope for oppressed nations everywhere, a powerful statement that the soul of Africa could not be conquered or broken. With the defeat of the Italians at the Battle of Adwa, Kato's name became synonymous with hope and pride throughout Ethiopia, a symbol of resilience against foreign domination. But the victory, as monumental as it was, marked only the beginning of his true challenge, building a stronger, more united Ethiopia that could withstand the trials of time and remain sovereign for generations to come. Kato understood that peace, once achieved, was fragile and needed to be carefully nurtured. His leadership, which had proven indispensable in war, was now just as vital in guiding his people through the delicate era of rebuilding and growth.
Now that we have peace, we must focus on building a better future for our people. The villages in the south need schools, and trade routes in the north require improvement. Yes, education, health, and trade. These are the foundations of Ethiopia's future. We will build schools for every child, roads to connect every village, and hospitals that can care for all. This is how we ensure that our people thrive long after we are gone.
He stands, walking to the window that overlooks the bustling capital below. He watches the people moving through the streets and imagines the Ethiopia of the future, an Ethiopia strong, prosperous, and united. In a lively marketplace at the heart of the capital, vendors call out to customers while the smell of fresh bread and spices fills the air. The marketplace is alive with the sound of children playing and villagers chatting. Children chase one another, reenacting the Battle of Adwa, their sticks raised like swords as they shout and laugh, pretending to be Kato. The marketplace, once a place where whispers of fear and rumors of invasion had spread like wildfire, now hummed with a new energy, an energy of optimism, renewal, and hope. The air, once thick with tension and uncertainty, now carried the sound of laughter, the vibrant chatter of merchants and villagers, and the playful shrieks of children. The once solemn and anxious faces of the people were now replaced with smiles, their eyes bright with the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Kato's name was spoken with deep reverence, not merely as the king who had driven out invaders and safeguarded their land, but as the visionary leader who saw beyond the battlefield and into the hearts and needs of his people. His victory over the Italians had earned him respect, but it was his dedication to building a new Ethiopia that made him beloved. He was not just remembered for his sword, but for his wisdom, for understanding that true strength came from unity, education, and a thriving community. In every corner of the marketplace, his influence could be felt, whether in the bustling trade that now flourished or in the hopeful discussions about the future. Kato was no longer just a warrior king. He had become the people's king, a leader who embodied the hopes and dreams of all of Ethiopia. In a village far from the capital, Kato visits a newly built school, its walls freshly painted and its classrooms filled with eager children. The village elders stand with Kato, watching the children at play and listening to the hum of lessons being taught. Kato looks at the school with pride, knowing that this was the future he fought for, a future where every Ethiopian child would have the chance to learn and grow.
This school is a blessing. We never thought we'd live to see a time like this.
It is only the beginning. We must make sure that every child in every village has the chance to learn. Only then will Ethiopia truly be strong.
You have united us, Kato, not just with victory, but with your vision for our future. The people will follow you wherever you lead. Years have passed, and Kato, now older but still sharp and resolute, walks through the halls of his palace. The walls are adorned with paintings and carvings, telling the story of Ethiopia's journey under his reign. As he passes each image, he pauses, reflecting on the battles fought and the peace that followed. His thoughts drift to the future, knowing that the foundation he has built will need to be carried forward by the generations that come after him. Kato enters a room filled with young leaders, men and women who have risen through the ranks of Ethiopia's new schools and academies. They stand ready to take the torch from Kato, their eyes filled with the same fire that had once driven him.
Ethiopia's strength lies not just in the battles we have won, but in the peace we have built. The future of our nation is in your hands now. Lead with wisdom, and always remember, our unity is our greatest strength.
Kato's legacy endured far beyond his reign, etched into the very fabric of Ethiopia's identity. He was remembered not just as the king who had driven out invaders, but as a visionary who looked beyond victory on the battlefield to build a lasting foundation for his nation. Under his guidance, Ethiopia became a land of opportunity, where education, health, and trade flourished. Schools were built in villages that had once known only the hardships of war. Hospitals, once scarce, began to dot the landscape, offering care and hope to those in need. Roads connected once isolated communities, opening pathways for trade, culture, and unity. Kato's vision was not limited to securing Ethiopia's borders. He sought to secure the minds and hearts of his people. His reign became a symbol of resilience, a story that parents would tell their children, generation after generation, as proof that no force, foreign or internal, could break the spirit of a united people. His achievements inspired future leaders who saw in Kato's life a roadmap for greatness built not on power alone, but on compassion and foresight. Ethiopia, once threatened by conquest, now stood as a beacon of African pride, an unyielding testament to Kato's enduring legacy. His name became synonymous with the strength and resilience of a nation that would never be conquered, only strengthened.